Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back. We're going to be doing another card deck Magic the Gathering thing, deck building. Um, so this one, I've decided to get a little fun with this one. It's similar to the Dumpster Fire Burn deck, but this one's a little bit more, I want to say, friendly, I guess. It's Nekuzar, the Mind Razor. 2, a blue, black, and red. It's a legendary zombie wizard. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. When an opponent draws a card, Nekazar, the Mind Razor, deals 1 damage to that player. It is a 2/4. So this is a kind of a group hug. I call it painful hugs because you help other people draw stuff, but it hurts them when they draw stuff. So we'll just set you aside over there. And let's go ahead and get started and see what we got here. So first off, we got an Erudite Wizard, 2 and a blue. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. It is a 2/3. One with the Multiverse, 6 mana and 2 blues for an enchantment. Look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. And once during each of your turns, you may cast a spell from your hand or the top of your library without paying its mana cost. Shivan Reef land, swamp. Drana, Liberator of Malakir, 1 and 2 black. She's a flying first strike legendary vampire. And whenever she deals combat damage to a player, you put a +1/+1 counter on each attacking creature you control. She's a 2/3. An island. Lightning Greaves, 2 mana, equipment. Equip creature has haste and shroud. Equip cost 0. Bonder's Enclave. Pay 3 mana to draw a card. Activate this ability only if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, or you can just tap it for a colorless. I don't know why I set those ones aside. We kind of want to keep everything going. Command Tower, tap 1 of any color. Niv Mizzet, Draco Genius. 2 mana, 2 blue, and 2 red. Legendary Dragon Wizard that is flying. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. Or you can pay a red and a blue to have it deal 1 damage to target creature or player. It's a 5/5. This is going to have a couple similar things to the burn deck. So if you're not necessarily seeing a pattern here, it'll come together in the end. We got a mountain. We got a swamp. We got Psychosis Crawler, 5 mana. It is an artifact creature. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in your hand, and whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. Victimize, 2 and a black. Choose 2 target creatures in your graveyard. Sacrifice a creature. If you do, return the chosen cards to the battlefield tapped. Crimson Wisps, 1 red, instant. Target creature becomes red and gains haste until end of turn. Draw a card. A swamp. Gemstone Caverns, it's a legendary land. If it's in your opening hand and you're not the starting player, you can begin with it on the battlefield with a luck counter. If you do that, you have to exile a card from your hand, and then you can tap it for a colorless. If it's got a luck counter, it's 1 mana of any color instead. We got the other Niv Mizzet, the Firemind, 2 blue and 2 red for flying, and whenever you draw a card, it deals 1 damage to any target. You can tap him to draw a card. It's a 4/4. Black Market, 3 and 2 black. It's an enchantment. Whenever a creature dies, put a charge counter on Black Market. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add a black for each charge counter on your Black Market. Orcish Bowmasters, 1 and a black. Flash. When Orcish Bowmasters enters the battlefield, and whenever an opponent draws a card, except for the first one in each of the draw steps, Orcish Bowmasters deals 1 damage to any target, then amass Orcs 1. It's a 1/1. Opt, blue mana for an instant. Scry 1, draw a card. It That Betrays, pay 12 mana. It has Annihilator 2. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent, put that card onto the battlefield under your control. It's an 11/11. Now, you're not going to have too many things that makes things sacrifice other than its own Annihilator, but it is a big honkin' boy, and having 1 big bomb, 1 big power swing, usually a good one. That's not a bad one either. Skyclave Relic, 3 mana, and have an additional 3 kicker, so if you pay 6 total, you will activate its effect. It is indestructible, and when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, you create 2 tokens that are copies of it, and it taps for 1 mana. An island. An island. Alhammaret's Archive, 5 mana, legendary artifact. If you would gain life, you gain twice that much instead. If you would draw a card, except the first one you draw 2 cards instead. Kaido, Dancing Shadow, 2, a blue and a black. It's a legendary planeswalker. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal damage to a player, you may return one of them to its owner's hand. If you do, you may activate Loyal Abilities of Kaido twice rather than once. +1 makes a creature unable to attack or block until your next turn. Pay 0 to draw a card. Or -2 to create a 2/2 drone artifact creature token with Death Touch. And when this creature leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life with a loyalty of 3. Nightscape Familiar, 1 and a black. Blue spells and red spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and you can pay the same cost to regenerate it. It's a 1/1. Island. Virtue of Persistence. Its sorcery thing is 1 and a black. Target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn. You gain 2 life. And then 7, 5 and 2 black. At the beginning of your upkeep, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Mountain. Goblin Sharpshooter, 2 and a red. Goblin Sharpshooter doesn't untap during your untap step. Whenever a creature dies, untap it. And you can tap it to deal 1 damage to any target. It's a 1/1. Trailblazer's Boots, 2 mana. It's an equipment. Equipped creature has non-basic land walk and equip cost 2. We got a Rakdos Carnarium. You pop it down, you pick something else up, it comes in tapped, and you tap it for a red and a black. Fevered Visions, 1, a blue and a red. It's an enchantment. At the beginning of each player's end step, that player draws a card. If that player is your opponent and has 4 or more cards in hand, Fevered Visions deals 2 damage to him and her. Swamp. Sheevan Gorge. It's a legendary land, taps for a colorless, or you can pay 2 and a red to deal 1 damage to each opponent. A blue. Gearson Starn, Kellermorph. 1, a blue and a red. Ward 2. Whenever another source you control deals exactly 1 damage to a permanent or player, Gearson Starn deals 2 damage to that permanent or player instead. It's a 3/2. Rhystic Study, 2 and a blue. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays 1. This is now part of the new Game Changer bracket thing that they released recently, so you may vary that on your decks based upon what type of group you're going to be playing in. Is it Charm? Blue and a red. It's an instant. Choose 1. Counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 2. Or it deals 2 damage to target creature, or you draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. We got a mountain. Shieldred's Edict. 1 and a black. Choose 1. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. Or each opponent sacrifices a planeswalker. Improbable Alliance, 1 blue and 1 red enchantment. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. You can pay 4, a blue and a red, to draw a card, then discard a card. Vesuva, you can have it enter the battlefield tapped as a copy of any other land on the battlefield. Shadowblood Ridge, you pay 1 to tap it and add a black and a red. Stormfist Crusader, a black and a red. It's a menace. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card and loses 1 life. It's a 2/2. And a mountain. Gigadrouse. It has a replicate cost. So when you cast it, you copy it for each time you paid its replicate cost and choose new targets. Tap target permanent. That's a nice thing to have in there in case you need to swing past somebody to get something for whatever reason. Mikokoro, enter a Center of the Sea. Legendary land, taps for colorless, or you can pay 2 mana to have each player draw a card. Horn of Greed, 3 mana artifact. Whenever a player plays a land, that player draws a card. Now you're starting to see it come together, huh? Psychic Possession, 2 mana and 2 blue. It's an enchant aura. Enchant opponent. Skip your draw step. Whenever an enchanted opponent draws a card, you may draw a card. Is it Boilerworks? It enters tapped, same as the Rakdos, except for a blue and a red. Bloodletter of Alkazots. 1 and 3 black. It's flying 2/4, and if an opponent would lose life during your turn, they lose twice that much life instead. War Room taps for colorless, or you can pay 3 and pay life equal to the number of colors in your commander's color identity to draw a card. Torwaki the Younger, 3, a black and a red. Reach and lifelink. If another source you control would deal non-combat damage to a permanent or player, it deals that much damage +1 to that permanent or player instead. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Torwaki deals 2 damage to any target. He is a 3/3. Kess, Dissident Mage. 1 mana, 1 blue, 1 black, and 1 red. It's a legendary human wizard. Flying, during each of your turns, you may cast an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. If a card cast this way would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. It's a 3/4. Shieldred the Apocalypse. 2 mana and 2 black. Legendary creature. Death Touch. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life, and whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. 4/5. It's an obvious include in this one. Everybody knows Shieldred. Jace, Vryn's Prodigy, or Vryn's Prodigy. 1 in a blue. Legendary creature, human wizard. There's a lot of these human wizards. Draw a card, then discard a card. If there are 5 or more cards in your graveyard, exile Jace, then return him to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. Is a 0/2. And it becomes Jace Telepath Unbound. +1, untap, +1 up to 1 target creature gets -2, -0 until your next turn. -3, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard this turn. If that spell would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile instead. Or -9, you get an emblem with whenever you cast a spell, target opponent mills 5 cards. All right. Galazeth Prismari, 2, a blue and a red. It's a legendary dragon, flying. And when it enters the battlefield, you create a treasure token. And artifacts you control, tap this to add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast instant or sorcery spell. It is a 3/4. We got Dragon's Claw for 2 mana. Whenever a player plays a red spell, you gain a life. Keranos, God of Storms, 3, a blue and a red. It's a legendary enchantment creature. Indestructible. As long as your devotion to blue and red is less than 7, it is not a creature. So your devotion is going to be this. So if you don't have a bunch of these pips out here that equal 7, then it is just an enchantment, not a creature. Reveal the first card you draw on each of your turns. Whenever you reveal a land card this way, draw an extra card. Whenever you reveal a non-land card this way, Keranos deals 3 damage to target creature or player. It is a 6/5. Mithril Coat, 3 mana. It's a legendary artifact equipment. Flash and indestructible. When it enters the battlefield, attach it to target legendary creature you control. Equipped creature has indestructible with an equip cost of 3. Having some protection for Nekuzar is important because people are going to want to kill him. And an island. Kami of the Crescent Moon, 2 blue. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. 1/3. Wheel of Fortune, 2 and a red. It's a sorcery. Each player discards their hand, then draws 7 cards. Island. Shizo, Death's Storehouse. Legendary land taps for a black, or you can pay a black, and target legendary creature gains fear until end of turn. Now, if you want to negotiate, you can have an opponent say, hey, don't attack me, and I'll give your creature fear, and that might help encourage them to get a free attack on other people. Windfall, 2 and a blue. Each player discards their hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. Teferi's Ageless Insight, 2 and 2 blue. It's a legendary enchantment. If you would draw a card, except the first one you draw in each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. Brawl, Chief of Compliance, 1 and a blue. Instant and sorcery spells you cast are 1 less to cast. And whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. We don't have too many of those in this one, but the reduction is still nice. And it's a 1/3. Treasure Nabber, 2 and a red. Whenever an opponent taps an artifact for mana, gain control of that artifact until the end of your next turn. He's a 3/2. Persist, 1 and a black. Return target non-legendary creature from your graveyard to the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it. Liliana, Dreadhorde General, 4 and 2 black. Whenever a creature you control dies, draw a card. You can +1 her to create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. You can -4 have each player sacrifice 2 creatures. Or you can -9 each opponent chooses a permanent they control of each permanent type and sacrifices the rest. She has loyalty of 6. Spell Swindle, 3 and 2 blue, counter target spell. Create X treasure tokens where X is that spell's converted mana cost. Brainstorm, 1 blue, instant, draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. Font of Mythos, 4 cards. 4 mana. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws 2 additional cards. I'm going to take a drink. You talk a lot. Oh, and your voice gets dry real fast. Prismari Command, 1 a blue and a red. It's an instant. You choose 2 of these options. Prismari Command deals 2 damage to any target. Target player draws 2 cards, then discards 2 cards. Target player creates a treasure token or destroy target artifact. Deflection, 3 and a blue. Change the target of target spell with a single target. We gotta make some room over here, Nezikar. Chill out. All right. Counterpoint, 3, a blue, and a black. Counter target spell. You may cast a creature, instant, sorcery, or planeswalker spell from your graveyard with mana value less than or equal to the spell's mana value without paying its mana cost. So you counter something, you get something free that's cheaper. Normally this is called the Nadir Kraken, but we are going with the Fenrisian Kraken. I don't know why or what set or IP that's from, but it's a mana and 2 blue. Whenever you draw a card, you may pay 1. If you do, put a +1 counter on Nadir Kraken and create a 1/1 blue tentacle creature token. It's a 2/3. Sword of Fire and Ice, 3 mana. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from red and blue. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, Sword of Fire and Ice deals 2 damage to any target and you draw a card. Equip cost 2. Visions of Beyond, 1 mana. Instant, draw a card. If a graveyard has 20 or more cards in it, draw 3 cards instead. I just played this deck today and I actually got to use that because the dude was milling himself. So that was awesome. Soul Ring, 1 mana. Tap to add 2 colorless. Bam. Nice and simple. Island. You're getting in the way here. I gotta move you. I need room. Okay. All right. No. Yeah. All right. Fine. You can be in front of Nekuzar. Geruda, Doom of Depths. 2 and either 2 blue or 2 black or 1 of each. It's a legendary creature. When it enters the battlefield, each player mills 4 cards. Put a creature card with an even mana value from among the milled cards onto the battlefield under your control. Is a 6/6. Sprite Dragon, a blue and a red, flying haste. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Sprite Dragon. It's a 1/1. Dimir Aqueduct, just like the other ones, you bounce a land to your hand, put this down tapped, and get a blue and a black mana. Isochron Scepter, 2 mana. When this enters the battlefield, you may exile an instant card from your hand with mana value 2 or less. And then you can pay 2 mana. You copy the exiled card, and then if you do, you cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Venser's Journal, 5 mana. You have no max hand size. At the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 1 life for each card in your hand. Sabo Tavak, 5, a black and a red. It's a legendary creature with first strike and protection from legendary creatures. You can pay 2 black to destroy target legendary creature. It can't be regenerated. It is a 7/4. We have the Ruinous Powers, 2, a black and a red. It's an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose an opponent at random. Exile the top card of that player's library. Until end of turn, you may play that card, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast it. When you cast a spell this way, its owner loses life equal to its mana value. Bothersome Quasit, 2 and a red. It's Menace. Goaded creatures your opponents control can't block. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, goad target creature an opponent controls. 3/2. This is another protection spell. Keep them off of you because they'll want to swing at you. Aid the Fallen, 1 and a black. Sorcery, choose one or both. Return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. Return target planeswalker from your graveyard to your hand. Najal the Storm Runner, 2 blue and a red. It's a legendary Ifrit wizard. You may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. Whenever Najal the Storm Runner attacks, you may pay 2. If you do, when you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. It is a 5/4. Howling Mine, 2 mana. At the beginning of each player's draw step, if this is untapped, that player draws an additional card. The Royal Scions, a mana, a blue, and a red. Legendary Planeswalker, Will and Rowan. +1 to draw a card, then discard a card. +1 for target creature to get +2/+0 and first strike and trample until end of turn. Or -8 to draw 4 cards. When you do, the Royal Scions deal damage to any target equal to the number of cards in your hand. Finally, Grip of Desolation, 4 mana and 2 black mana. Instant Devoid, exile target creature and target land. Now, did I say you should have? I'm pretty sure I did. I can't remember, but you should have a Reliquary Tower in here as well, because you will be drawing a bunch of cards. Did I say Reliquary Tower? Ah, crap. Now I gotta look. Hang on a second, because it feels like I don't remember seeing one. Right, that's victims, swamps. I mean, you do have 1 or 2 others that gives you unlimited, but having a land that does it help remove the chance of you, losing them to removal. Holy moly. Do I not have a Reliquary Tower in this deck? I could have sworn that I did. All right, well, I recommend you throwing one in there. I guess I'll have to... I may have been out of them when I made this deck. That's right, now that I think about it. Okay. Well, there you go. There's this Painful Hugs. You help other people draw stuff, but as long as you have him out, you deal damage. And if you can't get him out, then you've got your backup Gearson and Niv Mizzets. So at least with all the card drawing still going on, you still have a chance to ping people. That's the idea. Hope you like it. Feel free to add any additions or subtractions, especially now with the new brackets coming out. But that's if you guys play that way, or your pod or whatever. So yeah, have a good evening, and we'll check you guys later.